Met you after a long time. Today was a big day for Ritu. It was her first day at her new job. Finally, she was close to her goal. When she reached the HR office to report, the HR informed that she would be instructed by the marketing head. And here he comes. The hero of our office, informed the HR, pointing at the door. Before he could say anything more, Ritika was stunned as if she had seen a ghost. This person standing before her was Vikram. Vikram was also shocked when he noticed that the lady who stood before him was none other than Ritika, his first love. However, at the same time, he was also very happy to have finally found her. They were introduced to each other by the HR. Meet Mr. Vikram, the magician, our marketing head. Then the HR turned to Vikram. She is our new advertising assistant, Miss Ritika Parashar. She will be joining the creative team, informed the HR. Both shook their hands and kept staring into each other's eyes for a minute until they were interrupted by the HR. Vikram, orient her about the company and update her about her work. Introducing them, the HR got busy with his work. Both Ritika and Vikram left the cabin. As they came out, Ritu started walking towards the lift. Vikram cried, "Hey, wait, your office is on this side. You are going in the wrong direction." She deliberately ignored the warning. Having realized this, Vikram started walking after her. She entered the lift and pressed the ground floor switch. He entered the lift following her. Ritika got a chance to speak her heart. "Had I known that you work here, I would seldom come here." "What bad luck I have," said Ritika. The lift reached the ground floor and she started walking towards the exit gate. Vikram walked out of the lift but stopped. He shouted out loud, "Is the hatred against me more important than this job in your life?" Ritu stopped walking, listening to his words. She thought that he made sense. "For coming here, I have a motive and no one can come in between. Not even Vikram." Thus, Ritu turned and walked towards Vikram. "Okay, fine, I won't leave so soon. However, there is something that you should know, clearly. Firstly, we will just be acquainted professionally. No personal talks. Secondly, don't even hope that we could be friends again." Having said that, she walked back towards the lift. Vikram, who stood there watching her retreat, said to himself, "As if I was dying to talk to you. Self-obsessed." However, he was happy with her wise decision. He followed her back till the lift. Actually, they were childhood sweethearts separated due to their different career paths. However, they could never forget each other. This time, fate had brought them together. A number of days had passed, but the distance between their hearts did not decrease. One morning when Vikram was returning with his coffee, he saw Ritika downloading a virus file on the organization's computers. But when he reached nearby, Ritika closed the page and pretended as if working. He ruled out his thoughts of suspicion, stating that she could not do such a thing. Maybe she opened the page unaware, he thought. Thus, he didn't confront her, then. The next day, Ritika sneakily had placed microphones and camcorder in the meeting room to record the conversation and discussion in the confidential meeting that was to be held between the partners and the company's financial advisors. When Vikram saw her coming out of the meeting room before the meeting had begun, he stopped her there and then. He asked her the reason for being there. He just wanted to get rid of the doubts in his mind and have a definite answer. What were you doing in the meeting room? I am in charge of arranging for the meeting. Do you want me to report everything now? Ritika spoke the last sentence a little haughtily. Vikram did not have any answer for her argument and she left him looking miffed with him. Vikram, who couldn't help but be cynical about her moves, went straight towards the security room to check the recordings on the pretext of looking for his lost umbrella. The security chief gave him a curious look but followed his instructions due to Vikram's friendship with the security head. While Vikram checked the footage of the meeting room, he engaged the security personnel in looking for his umbrella on the other monitor that recorded a different flow. Vikram realized he was still unconsciously covering up for her. By the time he had rewinded the meeting room activity, half an hour had passed. He noticed that nothing unusual had been captured on the camera, but when he had seen Ritika arranging the flower vase in the room, it had felt a little odd considering the fact that they had been well placed beforehand. He knew something was off and soon left the security room and went straight away to the meeting room where the meeting was about to start. Oh, I am here for the flower vase. We've been informed that some of the members are allergic to roses here. I am extremely sorry for the interruption and inconvenience. Excuse me. He came out with the vase and went to the washroom where he emptied the contents of the vase. He was right. It had a recorder and a mini-cam. Vikram was really frustrated now. With clenched teeth, he whispered in the device in a no-nonsense tone. What are you up to? Meet me, now. Ritika heard it and felt exhausted and angry. He had ruined her plan one more time. They came out of the office and without saying a word took the stairs up to the terrace to confront each other. Ritika ran to the terrace area first and screamed in anger looking at the open sky. Why don't you let me succeed? Vikram heard her while he was on the last step that led to the terrace. Her angry reaction caused him to grow furious and he walked towards her direction with determined steps. As soon as Ritika saw him, she turned her face away, as if didn't want to give any explanation. The next moment she had found her way to the floor and he heard her cry hiding her face. Her volatile mood made Vikram forget his anger and he walked towards her taking 2 steps at a time. He reached her and kneeling beside her, he awkwardly tried to pat her shoulder as she wailed. Vikram had never expected he would see a strong girl like Ritika cry like a baby. Once her tears had subsided, she looked at him with resentment in her eyes. When she spoke, she blamed him and cursed him as if he was the company's owner. I hate you. I just hate you. I hate you more than anyone else in the world. You don't have any sense of justice? From today onwards, you are the biggest evil of my life. Vikram had no clue as to why she reacted like that. So he asked her why she had done such a thing. Ritika wasn't intending to keep any secret as she was eager to expose the company's fraud. So, she told him the story of how her family, who were partners of the company, were wrongly banished from the company after her father's co-partners unitedly dropped the share price and bought all his shares in disguise. Vikram patiently heard her side of the story and handed over his handkerchief to wipe her tears. Later, he asked her to wait for him inside his office cabin while he thought over what action to be taken regarding the matter. Once Ritika had left, Vikram began to contemplate the situation. He was in shock. He realized that she had been justified in her anger towards the company. But he was bound by the company's loyalty. He had given his ears to this place. He couldn't have overlooked her deliberate actions to harm the company. On the contrary, complaining about her beloved girl was out of the question. He was in great jeopardy. He was left in a huge dilemma. Now, it was in his hands to decide what action to be taken against Ritika. After a thorough contemplation, he went back to his cabin where he saw Ritika didn't know how he would react. She looked a little nervous, but she had no guilt for her attempt to avenge her father. He walked towards his chair and sat facing her before he started. Look, Ritika, your anger is valid. Yes, your family was wronged, I agree. However, I don't agree with your way of getting back at them. Please, give up on revenge. It won't help. I am not reporting you this time as I want to give you another chance to think things through, but next time if something like this happens, I don't promise any help because for me, it is my duty to protect this company and I will do so. Ritika walked out of Vikram's cabin looking disturbed. She hated him for not understanding her and instead, lecturing her. However, at the same time she also thought about his advice. And then she stood up and walked out. While leaving the office, he received mail from Ritika. It was her resignation letter. He ran to her workstation but she had left. Again, he felt a sense of loss. He was confused now. And he thought, this is what I wanted. This is good for her as well as the company. She is giving up on her revenge. The company will be safe. Everything is right. Then why does it make me feel so sad? Why does it hurt me? He did not accept the resignation and did not reply to that mail that day. For the first time Vikram was indecisive about something. He couldn't sleep that night. How can she leave like that, he thought. There is something called moral responsibility. She should have at least got my approval. He blamed her and then he wanted to blame himself. She was restless at night but the next day when she woke up, her confusion subsided. The next day when he arrived at the office he kept waiting for her but she never showed up. After some initial hesitation, he sent her a text asking her to come to the office the next day. There was no reply from her side and he was unable to concentrate on work. Something pricked his conscience and so he decided to call her. He called her after giving it a lot of thought. Why are you calling me when I am in the meeting? Ritika replied. Have you come to the office? He asked in surprise. Yes, I have been in the meeting since morning. Can we go home together? He asked. You want to discuss everything now only, right? Okay, fine, now don't disturb. Saying that, she cut the call. He was delighted and relieved but was too curious to know the reason why she came back. In the evening, when everyone was leaving, they saw each other from a distance. They were happy to see each other. Ritika smiled and signaled him to follow her. They walked together and she took him to the bus stop nearby the office. She heard Vikram, who tried to apologize to her for getting in her way and attempted to explain to her why he couldn't let her do it because he was worried about her. He even asked her to come back to work. To which she replied, I have already made up my mind. And the news is that I have decided to give up on revenge. In fact, I wanted to thank you for your advice and... She didn't finish. Ritika wasn't immune to his kind words and she knew how he had jeopardized his job twice just to save her going against his principles and work ethics. And so, Ritika thanked him for his kindness and accepted his apology. They went to have pizza then. When he came to the office the next day, Vikram received shocking news. Someone had sued the company for the false claims in an advertisement, and the company had put the blame on Ritika, the newbie, for being the creative director of that project. Vikram grew furious on learning about the news. He walked to his superiors and did something he never did before. He threatened to expose their treachery against Ritika before the media. They were scared and gave him the freedom to handle the matter as a marketing manager. He had planned to call a press conference and publicly apologize to the customer and reimburse him for the loss. But first, he had to secure Ritika. A furious Vikram then rushed to Ritika's house to inform her about the situation. However, he realized he was too late when he saw a huge crowd gathered outside her house. The media had reached Ritika's vicinity asking her neighbor for her whereabouts. Ritika, who was returning from her jogging, was baffled to see a huge crowd gathered in her colony. Before she could speak to inquire about the matter or learn anything, she felt a hand covering her mouth. For a few seconds, Ritika was filled with a sense of anxiety, but she relaxed after she saw Vikram's face as he uncovered her mouth and pulled her away from the crowd. Vikram took her to stand behind a huge tree where they hid away from the crowd. "What are you trying to do?" she demanded. "I am here to help you, but only if you believe me." He continued, "Think wisely. If you go there, now you will be bombarded with blames. Wake up, Mom, we are in hiding." She decided to take a leap of faith. "Okay." She looked into his eyes with hope. She saw a care in them for her. Vikram couldn't believe his ears, but for now protecting her was the priority. "It is better to let them cool up for now and explain later. For now, come with me." She followed him without asking. Vikram took her to his own house even though she had suggested going to a nearby coffee shop. He had no choice but to reveal his concern for her. He assured her that it was the safest place and he wanted to make sure that she was most safe and right before his eyes. That would have happened only if she stayed in his house. While staying at Vikram's house, Ritika and Vikram had a few awkward interactions before they really got comfortable in each other's presence. During her stay at his house, the two came up with plans to expose the truth about the conspiracy against both Ritika and her father. During her stay, she had unconsciously started to admire Vikram and was gradually falling for him. But she hadn't been sure about his feelings until, one day, while cleaning his house, she had found his diary. She knew that she wasn't supposed to read his personal diary, but her curiosity made her browse through the journal entries. To her surprise, the diary was filled with Vikram's thoughts, and Ritika realized she was featuring in most of those pages. She was delighted to know that he was missing her. Then she looked around, and as written in the diary, it was the exact dream home they had once planned for when they were together. She could not believe her eyes, but she had proof right in front of her. She recalled that all this while, he was just helping her out, caring for her and protecting her. She was glad that she was someone's center of the world. She realized that all she wanted was to be loved. She wanted to share her feelings too, but she feared. She was homeless and jobless. How could she feel worthy of him? He had already gone through a lot of trouble for her. Thus, she contained her feelings. The only thing she could do was to love him from a distance and wish him well for his future. A few days later, Vikram arrived home bubbling with excitement. When he found her in the kitchen, he went over and held her hands in his. He then told her how her name was cleared and she was no more a media target. She could now resume her job. Vikram also got promoted to a higher level position. Both were excited and hugged each other. But a sad thought appeared in Vikram's mind. This meant that she was free to go back to her home. They would separate. Ritika gladly thanked Vikram and told him about her plans to leave for her house. The news of her exit had made Vikram especially sad, she noticed. Ritika too realized she could not bring herself to leave Vikram, but she had no choice. So she thanked him again for everything and decided to leave. She tried to console herself. You can text him every day, see him in the office. He is not going anywhere. She set out to leave that very night without confessing her feelings. Are you leaving quietly, like before? A voice questioned her from the dark. He walked under the light of the night bulb outside the house. It was Vikram. He was awake and probably knew that she would do so. You must have already read my diary. Now, take a look at this photo album. When Ritika saw it, she was amazed. It was full of memories when they were together in college. These are all memories. I saved it for the day when we met but did not have courage to ask you if. He stopped and his expression changed. If we can forget the past and start a new chapter together. He finally told her. She replied, and I had thought that when I would meet you I would hit you on your face but you make such innocent faces that I can't bear to hit you. I thought I would hate you more but your every action makes me fall for you more and more and that is scary. I didn't want to be attached to you and that's why I was leaving. Please, don't leave. I still love you and I don't want to be aloof from you. He went on his knees and confessed to her. But, I hate you. I hate you. Saying this she began punching Vikram's chest over and over again while Vikram willingly served her as a punching bag. Vikram's attention was fully focused on Ritika, who slowly gave in and hugged him. An elated Vikram hugged her back. Ritika realized she had been longing for this moment. She then understood that all she wanted was love and how silly she had been to indulge herself with the idea of revenge, ignoring this loving and kind-hearted man in the process. At that moment, she accepted him wholeheartedly, for he had already made a place in her heart. He had ended her mental misery and showed her the path of peace. And thus, they were united, soon married and lived happily ever after. Thank you for listening to our short story. Hope you've enjoyed it. If you liked it, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Sweet Saring Hai, for more such content. The end.